Hello, welcome everyone to Learn Plus. I'm Brenda Bailey Hughes, and I am so glad that you've joined us today. Um, I see in the sign up that we have some old familiar faces. Okay, not old, familiar faces, people who are returning to us. Welcome back and Happy New Year. Thank you so much for continuing to be a part of the Learn Plus community. It's always great to see you. I also see some new names registered for today. So a special welcome to those of you who are brand new to Learn Plus. I'll take a couple minutes, introduce myself, tell you a little bit more about the Learn Plus show and community. While I'm doing that, those of you who've been here before, please give a warm welcome in the chat to our new friends. And all of you, maybe take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat. Would love to know maybe where you're zooming in or living in with us today. And if you want to share what your role or organization is, it's a great way for all of you to get to know each other and to build out your network in this very safe space of friends who have the commonality of loving to learn. We are all over the world. We are in all sorts of different organizations and with different roles, but the one consistency, the thread that ties us all together is that we are learners at heart, and that takes us a long way. So again, my name is Brenda Bailey Hughes. I am an author for the LinkedIn Learning Library. I have over 10 courses in the library with over 7 million learners that have taken those courses. And so I'm so honored to have an opportunity to share that globally and with that many people some of the content that I've learned over my career, primarily about communication, about leadership, and about customer service, always with a communication-centric focus. In addition to authoring for LinkedIn, I teach at for the Kelly Executive Partners, which is Kelly is a school of business and nationally ranked, usually in the top 10 school of business here in the United States, where I'm from. And they have an executive education component where I get to work with lots of amazing professionals just like you in remote and face-to-face trainings. So that's always a blast. And I love getting that experience as well. My career was predominantly in academia. I taught at the Kelly School of Business as a teaching professor for about 23 years before making the leap into entrepreneurial world with many of you that are solo entrepreneurs as well. And this is always great. I see that Shelby's with us from cold Tennessee. We are in an Arctic misery right now. All of us, it seems, around the world. I heard a friend from England this morning said it's pretty brutal there. I know a lot of us in the United States, even in places that are usually warm, are not so warm. Zildo, welcome. Vikrant from Canada. You're used to cold. And an HR consultant for your own company. So glad you're here. I think you're going to, my background before I went into academia was HR. So it's great to have another HR professional with me. So that's a little bit about me. I see some of you are letting us know about you in the comments. Keep doing that. That's always great. The point of this show, this Learn Plus community, is that each one of us as a learner at heart will come in once a month, if you choose and have the availability, to learn a new skill that we ourselves are interested in learning. One new skill, one new strategy, perhaps. But that's the learn piece. The plus piece is that each month I also give you a training tip, a way to teach others this same skill that we're learning that month. So we cater to leaders who have formal or informal roles of coaching and training others. You can use these tips in your training. It's also a really good space for learning and development training professionals. So if you are the learning and development professional in your organization, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, here we have a talent development role with Shannon, great, from Connecticut, also getting some cold weather, I think. Welcome. And if you are not the learning and development professional in your organization, I would love for you to share my authors page or a link to this live, which will be in my feed forever, with your L&D professional so that they can pick up these tips and then use them in the trainings that they're doing or coordinating as well. So love to be supportive. Sharon and Vikrant and Zildo, any of you, Shannon, I'm sorry, not Sharon, Shannon, if you have unique learning and development needs for 2025, if you're thinking about organizationally what is top of mind for you, let me know how I can be supportive in these live sessions. We've planned them out for the first few months of the year, but beyond that, we have a lot of flexibility in what our content is, so we can speak to some of the issues that are particularly interesting to you. So that's it. Learn Plus, Brenda Bailey Hughes. So glad that you are here. Let's talk about where we're heading this month. So this was motivated, this idea of leading yourself and others to lasting change, by New Year's and the new year. And that that idea that so many people at the new year set New Year's resolutions. This is the year I'm going to fill in the blank, right? And here we are, January 21st. This is the time that already some of those habits either start to lock in and they just become second nature and so easy, or they start to fall off a bit at this point. And so, how can we interject some new strategies to make sure that for ourselves or for our teams, as we take on these new year changes and these challenges, we actually make them last? I have 4 tips of how we can do that. And all 4 of these are based in some wonderful literature. I'll share with you some of the books that I've been reading about change so that you can continue your reading cycles or share these ideas with others as well. So the first tip up, fresh starts are a really great way to initiate a change and a lasting change in your behavior. So sometimes New Year's Eve resolutions get a bad rap, right? Because so many people, okay, it's December 31st, it's January 1, I'm going to start this, I'm going to start doing that. And then it does kind of taper off. We'll have some strategies for that in a minute. But because of that taper off syndrome, if you will, people, there's some backlash around New Year's resolutions. Now, Katie Milkman, in her research in a great book called How to Change, here's this one, Katie Milkman's How to Change. Let me get that where you can actually see it. The Science of Getting from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. She talks about the fact that fresh starts are actually a really great way to get yourself motivated or to get others motivated to change. And so one of the examples that she shares from her research is a study that it was done at a university where faculty and staff were being encouraged to make more investment into their retirement, financial investment, to start saving for their retirement. Now, the university was smart. They knew that habits last longer if we make them really easy to kickstart. And so they had made it so simple that basically the employee only had to click a button and they would automatically take money from payroll to invest it for them in their pre-set up kinds of things. Made it super easy. So that's a strategy that I'm not even one of the 4 tips. That's a bonus tip. Make it easy. And they had done that. But then for half of the employees that they reached out to, they gave kind of a random date for a start date, like next Tuesday, start savings, or this campus event that's not really a fresh start of any kind in their minds. But the other people in this experiment were given a very clear sort of fresh start date to start with. So they were told, let's start at the beginning of the next semester. And semesters are really important in academia, and our whole lives and our whole cycles sort of circle around the semester start. And so the people with these really clear fresh start dates started the behavior, the desired behavior of saving more at an exponentially higher rate than the people who were just given a random date to start. There is something motivating about a fresh start. So, for your own behaviors, if those New Year's resolutions have started to taper off a little bit, look at what is a logical restart for you. Is it tomorrow morning? Is it Monday mornings? Is it Sunday evenings? What is a logical restart time that syncs up with sort of this clean slate? And that is Katie Milkman's explanation for why fresh starts work. She said they allow us to psychologically distance ourselves from this person who has failed to make the change in the past or to be consistent with the habit. That's not me. That was the 2024 Brenda. The 2025 Brenda is the one who is going to be consistent about this particular habit that I'm trying to create. So for yourself and for your teams, can you think of a way to jumpstart good motivated change by picking a smart date? It's a simple strategy, but so effective. So let's say your team has not been great about submitting some report. Maybe it's an expense report or just whatever report people don't do a great job of submitting in a timely manner. And this is the year you guys are going to get better about it this year. Well, instead of just saying at the next team meeting, okay, starting now, random date, let's all do this. Instead, maybe there's a new mobile app to make it easier to fill out the report. So the day that this mobile app kicks out, and maybe we are strategic about when the mobile app launches, maybe it's at the beginning of a quarter or a fiscal year, that's when we're all going to turn in our expense reports within 1 week of a trip or of an expense being incurred. So fresh starts, that's our first tip for really launching motivated and lasting change. So I see some others have popped in. This is great. Lagodi from South Africa, welcome. So glad that you're here as well. We've just talked about our first tip, which is a fresh start, setting the date to begin a new habit, a new behavior for yourself and your team. Let's move to tip number 2. Now, that first one, we kind of assumed that people, maybe we'd never even been doing this expense report, and it's a new behavior. This next tip is for changing a behavior. So let's say that your team has been doing that expense report a certain way for years, and now accounting has asked that you do it a new way. So what we need to remember when we're changing a behavior is that unlearning is really hard. In fact, here's your plus for Learn Plus. I want to show you an exercise that I use when I teach this idea of how hard it is to unlearn something. So I bring these color cards that we'll show you right now to class with me, or show them on a screen like this. And what I want you to do is just read these words. So if you were to read across from left to right, from top row to bottom row, you'd say green, brown, black, blue, green, pink, right? You're just reading. And I'm going to time you while you do that. Now, in a real class, I give something like 30 seconds to see how well people do. I'll do less today since we're live. But in 10 seconds, just quietly read from left to right and see how far you get. Kind of make a note of how far you get. Ready? Your 10 seconds starts now. So I'm trying to be quiet so you can read. You're just reading the words. And maybe I'll give you 15 seconds, 5 more. And when I say stop in just 1 second, stop. Okay, now notice how far you got down the chart. Kind of make a mental note of how far you got. You with me? All right, now we're going to do it again. But this time, I don't want you to read the word. I want you to say the color of the font. So for example, the first word, I wouldn't say green, I would say pink. And the next word, I wouldn't say brown, I would say red, not black, but blue. So you're trying it again, another 15 seconds, but this time you're quietly saying aloud to yourself the color of the font that you see on each word. You ready? Go. And once again, we're going to note how far we get. Say, and if you miss a word, you just need to say it until you get it right. 2 seconds and stop. That was your 15 seconds. How far did you get that time as compared to the first time? You can tell us in chat how you did on those two. Oops, sorry about that. Those are gone. Okay, great. And then you can tell us in chat how you did on the color card. What I've noticed when I do this exercise in face-to-face with folks is that they typically make much further progress on that first one, because we've all been taught to read, almost all of us, from left to right, correct? From top to bottom. And so when your eyes start moving in that pattern, you automatically are reading the word, not saying the color of the font. Now, this is how many of you? Yeah, first time, sixth row, second time, third row. So you literally got twice as far that first time when you were doing it the way you'd learned to do it. Dr. Olivia, I wasn't not very focused, not very far for the second time around. Exactly. None of us do. And yet, if I were like, do you know your colors? You're like, well, yes, of course I know my colors. This isn't rocket science. This is not a hard task. And yet I'm stumbling over the words. I say it wrong sometimes and have to repeat it. That's what we need to remember when we are asking people to unlearn the way they've already learned to do something and to change, to make that change. It is just as hard as it was for you. Yeah, Miguel made it 45 to the 45th word the first time, but only did the 10th word the second time. So not even, more than double, in half. I just made that up, your time. I love it. So that's a great way to help managers realize what a big ask they are making of people when they say, well, we're just going to change our process a little bit. We just changed our process from reading left the word to saying the color. Easy. No, it's not. And we have to help people get through that with patience and with what our second tip is, which is contrast drills. So contrast drills help us unlearn one way of doing something so that we can successfully change our behavior to something else. So let's say those expense reports that we want the team to start filling out. Accounting has always had you do an Excel sheet and you put this information in this column and this information in that column, and then you hit tab and you went to the next sheet. Well, now they want you to put information in a different column and then switch it over here. And then, like just a small change in how you use it. Oh, wow. It can be as hard as our color card words were for us. So what a contrast drill is we will do it the old way, and then we immediately switch and we do it the new way. And then we go back, we try it again the old way, and then we do it again the new way. That contrasting between old, new helps. It sounds like it's reinforcing the old behavior, but what it's doing is comparing it to the new one so that when that muscle memory and mental memory kicks in, we have this comparative muscle memory that we've started to build that jumps in and says, oh, wait, there's a new way of doing this. So when I train for public speakers, if they have a habit of wiggling with their hands, I'll have them go through the presentation, wiggle your hands. Now, right in the middle of a sentence, I'll say, now change. Put your hands at your side in a more confident, poised position. Okay, now go back. Do what you normally do. Now pause. Now put your hands at your side. Now back. Now back. And by contrasting, shifting back and forth between old and new, people actually accelerate the rate at which they unlearn an old skill and can learn a new skill. Making sense? All right, that's tip number 2. Contrast drills to help you or your team if you need to go back, if you need to unlearn something and learn it in a new way. So I'm glad, yes, exactly. It's deconstructing the old way in order to build the new. That's a great way of saying what a contrast drill is doing in how it's affecting our learning. That's great. Okay. So now let's say it's not necessarily a skill we have to unlearn. This third tip is more for a habit that we want to do it, but we just keep forgetting, or it just keeps slipping off of our radar. All right. And so this third tip is called habit stacking. And as the name implies, you're going to find a habit that you're already really good at doing, and you're going to stack this new behavior onto it. I think this could be a really fun exercise for you and your teams, or even during your one-on-ones, because it allows you, first of all, to identify what are those habits, those workplace habits that we're already really good at doing. What a great way to celebrate that as you roll into 2025. And what a great way to reinforce the positive habits that we're already executing on a regular basis. So you help your team identify the habits they have that they're really good at, and then they make a mental association between that old habit and the new habit that you're trying to build. So let's go back to our expense reports. We want people to start remembering to fill those out. I sit down with you. I say, what's a habit you have that you're really good at doing? And maybe you think about it and you're like, you know what? I am so good at keeping the clutter off my desk. Every day, sometimes twice a day, I take the time to clean off my desk, to organize files, to get things kind of reset so that I have a great space, a welcoming space to work in. I say, okay, every time you take that 2 minutes or whatever, however long it takes you to organize the desk, that's the time to think, do I need to fill out the expense report? Do I have expenses that need to be recorded today? And so we're going to link it, organize my desk, organize my expenses, organize my desk, organize my expenses, organize my desk, organize my expenses. So we use a successful habit to stack on a new habit. Lots of research in James Clear's Atomic Habits. And you can see I've just read this book a million times. I have notes and tabs and scribble all through it because I've read it and reread it and reread it. But he talks a lot about habit stacking, the research behind habit stacking, and how what great efficacy there is around that. And then also gives lots of good examples of habit stacking so that you can make that your own and really get started with that as well. So my third tip is habit stacking. Practice, have some fun identifying great habits that you and colleagues already have, and then stack your new behavior, your desired behavior right on top of that. All right. Fourth and final tip for the day. Are you ready? Yes, Elizabeth, I'm glad you love Atomic Habits. I do too. In fact, it is one of those books that I reread every January, and it have since the book came out, I think, because it's just, it's such a win and such a great read. And it feels like I do exactly one of the things that this author recommends is 1% improvements. So finding little small changes that we can make. But if I make a 1% improvement this month and a 1% improvement next month, that's a 12% improvement just in 1 year's time. That's significant. And so by rereading the book, I pick up one new a habit building strategy each year, it seems like, and use it to my advantage each year, just incremental though. If you try to do everything in the book all at once, you'll probably just overwhelm yourself. So be good about just consistent about finding one that seems really appropriate for you this year and making that your new practice for at least a month or two. Okay. Fourth tip. Now, this is the one for all of those habits you want to build, you should build them perhaps, that they would be good for you. They would be good for your performance. They would be good for your organization. But you just don't actually like it. You don't want to do it. Okay. You know it would be good for you. You know in the end you'll be happy that you did it, but you just don't like it. You just are having a hard time finding any excitement. So, that habit stacking is not, I don't dislike this new behavior of filling out my expense reports. I just forget. And with contrast drills, it's not that I don't want to do it the new way. It's just that unlearning the old way is so hard. With a fresh start, it might be a behavior I've never even attempted before. This is for all of those behaviors that we've tried. They feel they're just no fun for us, and so we resist them, and therefore we've experienced some immunity to the change that we want. And Immunity to Change is another great read that I would put on your list. So, how do we get over ourselves and do what we know would be great for us, even when we detest the habit? So this tip, our fourth tip, is temptation bundling. Temptation bundling is when we take something that we want to do, that we love to do, and we don't allow ourselves to do that until we've done the thing that we don't want to do, but that we know we should do. All right. So one of the classic examples here in the fitness arena is that you don't allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast, maybe Learn Plus, unless you're on the treadmill, or unless you're on your stationary bike, or unless you're out taking a walk. Okay. So that's temptation bundling. I take this thing I want to do, but I withhold it until I do the thing that I need to do. So back in my academic career, I loved so much about being in academia. I loved being in the classroom. I loved my students. I loved my faculty team. I did not ever love to grade, just grading the papers, that evaluative piece. And maybe some of you feel that way about, I don't know, doing performance reviews of your staff. So I had to sort of self-bribe myself to do grading. And what I did love was tea time with colleagues. Every Tuesday, Thursday, when I was in office, there were several of us that had the same break between classes, and we'd make tea and we'd catch up for 15 or 20 minutes. And sometimes just talk about our weekend, sometimes actually talk work things and strategize upcoming classes. Even when we went entirely remote during the worst of the pandemic, we still would hop on our Tuesday, Thursday calls and have our steaming cup of hot tea, and we'd do our quick catch up between those classes. But what I did was made myself say, I have to get through at least 10 papers or at least 20 speeches that I need to grade, or I can't go to tea time. Well, I loved tea time so much. I was working my way through that pile of grading, even though it wasn't something I necessarily wanted to do. It was something I definitely needed to do, and I needed to do it in a timely manner. So how might you use temptation bundling to help yourself land and stick this new habit that you want to build for yourself in 2025? And how might you help your team use temptation bundling to land a new habit or behavior that you want for the team in 2025? So you have 4 skills. I'd love to see in the chat which one you are most drawn to based on our conversation today. So think of a change you're hoping to make in your behavior, or a change to behavior, or a new habit you want your team to take on. And then which one is really going to help you the most? Is it a fresh start? Is it a contrast drill to unlearn and then build out a new skill? Is it habit stacking, finding something you are so committed, so consistent in doing, and helping you remember the new one by stacking it on that old skill that you're great at? Or is it temptation bundling? Is it connecting something you should do to something that you want to do to make the best of those two habits. So I see, habit stacking is getting the love from Shelby and Elizabeth. Yeah. If either of you have used habit stacking already, Elizabeth, I think you have. If you want to chat your example of what habits did you stack to be consistent and successful, I would love that. Dana's going to try, and Aditya are both going to try temptation bundling. All right. So do you have an idea in your mind? What's the thing you want to do that you could link to something that you need to do? Vikrant has a great question. What if I still get to my temptation again and again, even if I have not completed my task? Okay, so that would be an issue with temptation bundling, is when we're self-monitoring, right? We could still cheat the system. So verbal commitment helps. So if you have an accountability buddy, someone, maybe right now you tell us, and all of us know then that you will not do X until you do Y. That could be helpful as a verbal acknowledgement or commitment that you make with someone else. Sometimes temptation bundling requires a little more effort. So for example, people that want to not use their credit card if they're trying to be more financially responsible and they haven't had a habit of paying off their credit card, they will give their actual plastic copy of their card to a friend to hold on to until they pay down or pay off what they already have on their credit card. And only then do they get the credit card back. So again, enlisting friends to help you take that temptation out of the picture. Vikrant, one other example that comes to mind is making it more difficult to get to that temptation. So a friend of mine was talking about wanting to do more reading, but knew that it wasn't, especially the type of, it was some sort of, it was in a chemical field and it was going to be sort of dense, technical reading. It wasn't fun reading, but he loved to watch TV in the evenings. So he was going to have to read so many chapters before he would let himself turn the TV on. But like you said, he could just still go out and grab the remote and turn it on. So he unplugged the TV and hid the remote in a really hard to get place in his house. So it complicated, it made it harder to engage in the temptation. And so he was less tempted. It was harder to get to that tempting behavior. I hope those techniques help you. So yes, when we're wanting to build a skill, I led earlier by saying we want to make it easy to do the skill that we want. And likewise, if there's a skill or a behavior we're trying to avoid, we want to make it really hard. We want to make it challenging to do that behavior. Put all sorts of barriers and burdens between us and the behavior that we're trying to change. Makes sense? Dr. Olivia loves habit stacking. It's going to try out some, you're going to try the temptation building. Good. Attaching to joy to what I am not inclined to do. Yes, I love that. Exactly. And then maybe we start building this mental association to where it's not something we hate to do after all. Shelby says she definitely struggles with the cheating on the temptation bundling and loves the idea of accountability. You have 4 great tips to solidify you and your team's new behaviors for 2025. Stay in touch to let me know which ones you tried and how they worked and how you built those habits out. I'm so curious how this is going to go for all of us. We will be back next month, March 3rd, with guest Matt Kovacs. He and I will be talking about a unique style of coaching that you can use to coach yourself, to coach others, to coach family members, friends, and colleagues, called coactive coaching. So I'm looking forward to learning more from Matt about this unique spin on coaching. I think it'll be great for all of us to have these new communication tools at our disposal, regardless of our role or what roles we're moving into. I see Raymond is also going to try temptation or bad habits are inverse to basic discipline. Yes, for acquisitions, buying habits, a simple evaluation. Nice to have and need to have is a good start. Most of things can wait. Absolutely. If working on fiscal responsibility is one of your goals. That's a great reminder, Raymond. Thank you. All of you, thank you for being here. Again, for those of you new to Learn Plus, welcome to our community. It's so fun to be with learners like you, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Take care. Be well.